I'm Nat, and I'm the Director of Engagement at Forbes Ignite. I'll be speaking a bit more of Forbes as we go on, but essentially we're an innovation coalition. What does that even mean? We're a bunch of like-minded individuals that believe we can do good in the world and also do right by ourselves. One of the best ways that we have at our disposal is AI. What is AI? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, maybe you kind of think you know. First of all, it's not Terminator, but it is just as interesting. Forbes Ignite. We're partnered up with Forbes, supporting social entrepreneurs, AI, emerging technology, change makers. So while a lot of places normally focus on the organization, we focus more on the individual and how they can use their skills, share with other like-minded people. Hopefully you'll get more of a feel of what we're all about as we go on. So as well as working at Forbes, I'm also on different committees and boards, and I'm also a social entrepreneur. So I work at an organization called Exceptional Individuals that supports neurodiverse individuals, dyslexia, autism. I'm also a trustee of two charities. One was called The Inspired, another is called Dyspraxic Me. I run an organization called Divergent Thinking, which supports individuals think in creative different ways. So I'm always creating more and more things. But as many of you will know, being a social entrepreneur, it's hard. It's real at the beginning. You're one person or two people, and you're trying to do the jobs of like 20 billion people. And that's tough. AI, hopefully, though, can make that a lot easier and a lot more productive and help you scale up even faster. And you do not have to damage the world at the same time. Everyone's winning. This is the first one in our series. Today is AI for social entrepreneurship. How can AI be applied to making the world a better place and as well as making a profit at the same time? The next one is AI for social impact. We've got AI for sustainable business models and AI for social entrepreneurship again. So if you like today, treat yourself and do it again. But we've got them coming up, and I really hope you're able to enjoy them. All today's workshops are based on the book, What's Your AI Strategy? By the brilliant Will and Nicole, who are both here today. Honestly, they spent a long time creating this book, and I have read it and gave it a 5-star review. I'm not biased at all, but
Thank
I
you,
really
Nat.
recommend it. It's a fantastic book for kind of C-level SEXOs, people who are in a position of making change in an organization, but might lack the kind of knowledge or background in AI, but know it's the future. So this is your like one-stop shop to not only understand the basic concepts, but how to apply it and also how to get buy-in. Because that's the one thing you'll find with AI going forward. It's the future, definitely, but getting buy-in, are you going to be like pulling like nails out, or can it be seamless? That's definitely what I would recommend this book for. So do check it out. But that's enough of a shameless plug today. Let's get on to the real good stuff. So what brings you here today? What made you want to come? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you for profit? Are you trying to help others? Are you curious? So we've got an entrepreneur, great stuff. And all right, I'm trying to be really lively today because we do have someone from Tokyo who got up at 2 a.m. for this. So got to give him a show. Entrepreneur who is also engaged in many social impact projects. I'm a social entrepreneur. I would love to learn the fundamentals of AI and how to apply it to my business. Well, you came to the right webinar. For profit social entrepreneurship, looking to explore AI use cases, digitalize SME in India. I also assist others with tech solutions. Okay, this is really great. Kenroy had also said, I'm a business student who is interested in research in regards to AI. Nice. We are all in the right place. I'm not going to play this with sound, but what I want to do is give you a brief intro of the potential implications of AI. So this is a video at the moment of there was this boy whose parents were too busy sorting out cucumbers every day, and it was taking him forever. So he decided to use free open source code from Google that would automatically put the cucumbers in different boxes, kind of freeing up time and giving his parents a time to relax. We've also got the one here, which wanted to scare the cat away. So it was continuously scanning for the cat and would activate the sprinkler. We've got other ones which kind of monitor whale sounds to help kind of look after the endangered species, people who are monitoring plants to make sure they do not die out. And what's amazing about all these amazing ventures is they're done by everyday people. You do not have to be a data scientist or a machine learning expert in order to implement these tools. The data, the algorithms, the code is free and easily accessible now. And I will show you how you can get involved, because I can't lie, it does seem a little bit daunting. But once you kind of just see that like 14-year-olds are creating amazing stuff, so it's definitely possible for everyone. One of the other ones I want to show you is this one. And this is quite close to my heart because as someone who is quite severely dyslexic, without the use of AI and modern technology, I wouldn't be able to be in a position of leadership. No one would take me serious. But nowadays, I've got special software that as I speak, it dictates it. I got things that read it back to me. And there's even this software now, which as the students are writing, it automatically corrects them. It's like a personal teacher. Think how the amazing implications, there's so much of the world which can't even learn at the moment because they don't have the resources. And yet, if you could get an e-teacher, and you might think like I lived in Nicaragua for a bit, and I remember in my like adopted family, we didn't even have a toilet. We had to walk ages to the toilet. Our floor was mud. We had pigs in the house all the time. Yet everyone had WhatsApp and a mobile phone. I swear they're always gossiping about me, but there we are. But the thing is, most people have a phone. So we can give that amazing technology to the world. Think of the amount of difference we're able to make. But this is just one example. Another one is these are the students. I think they're only in like secondary school. Long story short, California, bless it, is continuously on fire, and the firefighters continuously going out there to try to put out the fires. And what they would do, they'd monitor the grass, they'd see how dry it is, and that was incredibly time consuming, incredibly expensive. Ain't nobody got time for that. So what these kids did, they started taking lots of pictures of the grass and dry wood, and they tell the computer, they're like, okay, if a tree gets like this, the risk of fire goes up like 30%. And they managed to do loads and loads and loads of images of potentially fire risk wood. And now they're able to alert the fire department when it gets to that stage. And I think they said they managed to decrease the amount of fires by 80% or 70%, which is insane. And this was purely from free code that they were able to get on the internet. I'm not saying that you're the person who wants the code at the end of the day. If you know how it can be implemented, then you'll be able to instruct people who are able to do it. Bar in terms of being able to implement these stuff now is falling every single day. I want to hear from you. What is the sustainable development goal that you are most passionate about solving? And if any of you haven't heard about the SDGs, essentially the UN got together in 2015 and they went, you know what, the world's screwed. We should probably do something. So they got these 17 goals that if we work together, we can change the world. I think we've got till what, 2030 to implement them. Times are ticking, but it's still not too late. So I see we've got someone who's interested in no poverty. Others are interested in quality education. We've got good health and well-being. I think sometimes as a social entrepreneur or someone who actually cares about the world, we always think that we need to solve the entire world in one go. No, pick one goal and be a master at it. I find that's more beneficial. Because as I can see, we've got poverty, hunger, health, education. Nobody cares about the fish. Fair enough. No, we really should look after all of them. Okay, nice. And we've got responsible consumption and production. Brilliant. So now you know kind of the area that you want to solve. There's a few questions you should probably ask yourself before developing AI. AI is cool, but does that mean you should make it? Well, not necessarily. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit about how it can be implemented, but also why you might not want to implement it. I'm not on commission here. I get no money whether or not you go into AI, but to know the facts and to know if this is the right direction for you, it just makes sense. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So is AI the right decision for you? In a few words, tell me what is the social problem that you're trying to solve? Are you trying to solve education in rural areas? Are you trying to make healthcare more accessible? Are you just trying to have a good time? Whatever is something that you're passionate about, even if it's something so small that you think you would like to make the world a better place. Okay, we've got a lack of sustainable innovation in businesses. Perfect. Climate change. We need that. A lack of creative learning tools for young people, exploration of those who produce our food. Food's a great one. There's so many applications for AI in the food production. Technological unemployment, that's a really good one as well. Help social businesses get fair finance. Oh, could definitely do with your help. Market access for internet first, small, medium enterprises. So we've got quite a few different ideas of what you would like to solve. Now, brilliant. You want to solve the climate. Who doesn't? Or ecological trauma. Is AI the right tool for you in order to solve that? Remember, just because it's cool doesn't mean we should do it. So now I'm going to ask you a few questions to find out if you think it's the right tool and the right point in time for you to kind of dive a little bit deeper. Because I could tell you how cool it is all day long. So before we begin, I've got a few questions for you. And all you need to do is say, yep, I agree with this, or it sounds like me, or no, this doesn't sound like me. So can you state your problem clearly? Are you able to articulate it in a sentence, in a nutshell? Can you solve your challenges without AI? You know what? You might have to roll up your sleeves with a little bit of elbow grease, but if you can do it on your own, do you really need to involve RT2? Do you accept your solution will never be perfect? AI is not a miracle worker. Everyone who's like, the planet's on fire, AI is not going to fix it. It's a tool which can help us, but it's not going to do it on its own. And next one, do you possess enough data to get started? What is AI? AI is data. So I can see at the moment, a lot of you feel like you know your problem, which is nice, but less of you feel like you have enough data. Oh, no. And most of you feel that you can't solve your problem without AI. That's really interesting. I've got a few more, and this will help give us a good foundation for the remainder of the conversation. Is your data relevant? Is it up to date? Or did you buy it off some dodgy guy on the internet? Will you have continuous access to new data? Can you label your data? Is your data accurate enough? Do you have enough resources to keep the AI going? That cash money, AI is not cheap. Oh, we've got some big spenders in the group. Oh, okay, no, we don't. Easy come, easy go. So great. Now we have an idea of that. Can you state your social problem clearly? What repetitive task are you trying to automate? So take, for example, you're trying to solve climate change. Maybe it's just the admin, the writing, which is taking a long time. Or is there, maybe you're doing lots of admin, maybe you're doing lots of data input, maybe you've got to take lots of pictures and do a lot of analyzing. Is there a task which you do consistently, which is dull and, no offense, above your pay grade? We all have them, and sure, we can get an intern from Colorado University, but we probably shouldn't. There's if a robot can do it, and they'll probably do it better, why not? So we've got data cleaning and preparation. Absolutely. Data is a dirty business, and cleaning takes a long time. AI can do it. Cataloging and photography of products for marketplace. Yes, that does take a long time. I've definitely been there. I swear, like every day, my mum messages me and she's like, "Oh, can you sell this on the internet?" I was like, "Oh, I wish I could just get someone else to do that." Got siloed systems, so data is scattered and difficult to collect, interpret. Yes, different systems are speaking different languages. Imagine analysis and cataloging, great. So we've definitely got things that AI could get busy with. Now, this is a cool example of why it really could be very, very useful. Sea cows, personally, I call them a dugong. Dugons are a far better name, but all right, you Americans, you call it a cow. So on this water, where is the cow? And does this relate? So long story short, sea sea cows are in decline. Their numbers are plummeting. Why? Because people suck. And all we have to do is do a helicopter over the ocean, look in the ocean, snap, 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 see if we can find some sea cows. That is time consuming, dangerous, expensive. So what we're doing now is we're getting drones, they're flying over the oceans, they're taking hundreds of thousands of images, and then they're running it through an algorithm, some AI, and the AI will find the sea cow for you. How amazing. So again, if this was the image that you were looking at, Where is that sea cow? It's actually in the bottom right-hand corner. That little dot here. Do you see my mouse? That little thing there? Yep, that is a sea cow. That is what an AI is able to find. Now, I'm not going to lie, none of you got that right. You'd be fired straight away. But imagine you got it right. There are, just in this one example, may I say, 45,000 of these images that that drone took that you would have to find that sea cow. That takes so long. You know, let the sea cows die. Jokes. I actually want them to survive. But this is why AI is essential. Could we do this without AI? No. AI is needed for some of these issues. And this is a really important part. Just because you could use AI doesn't mean you should. I remember when I got my little Alexa, I got all those light bulbs that I'm like, Alexa, lights off. And, I didn't need it. My light switch was right next to me. I did it just because it was cool. The amount of energy, time, and money and resources it takes to implement AI, it might not be the best tool for you unless you think you couldn't do it any other way. This is another example. There's farmers in Tanzania, they eat this nice crop. And the only problem is it's continuously dying. The thing is, you can actually spot it dying. There's tiny little things in the leaves. No one's really spotting it in time. So what they do, they get their phone, they take a picture of it, and the phone tells them what's disease and how to treat it. And this is a really great way of educating the masses and giving them the tools to take ownership of their own future rather than relying on external help. So AI would be essential. Now, back to you. For your problem, do you think your problem is complicated enough? Is it complex enough to engage machine learning? Can it be represented by an equation? Can it be solved by a process? A lot of people think their problem is complex. So do they have thousands and thousands of pictures of sea cows? Well, I will say, oh, nice. If you picked the first one, so complex enough to engage machine learning, congratulations. AI is probably right for you. But if you picked the last two, you know what? Forget about it. I don't think you need AI. And that's because if you can do it by an equation, it's probably not complex enough to merit the hard labor costs of developing AI. Or if you can solve it by a process, again, it's probably not needed. Machine learning and neural networks is complex stuff. This is stuff which your brain would explode if you even try to fathom it out. So if you have the first one, that's a good sign that AI is a good development and a right avenue for you to go down. Next of all, how might AI help you support more people? Maybe it could help you by freeing up more time. Maybe it could allow you to support a wider amount of individuals. Maybe it can help translate words that would never be able to be translated before. Whatever it is, knowing exactly what you want your AI to do is really important. AI needs exact examples. You can't just say, do something. You have to have a really solid goal. So here we got lower risks. Absolutely. AI can reduce fatalities and death, but not always. And I will get to that in a section. Section? A second. So this is a really great example where AI has the possibilities of saving countless lives, but it also has the potential of killing a lot of people. So this image on the left here, this is a real image of a flood happening. And the image on the right is a artificial image. This is a prediction of where the flood will be heading. AI flood warnings, they're just monitoring the systems continuously. It could save lives, obviously, because if you know a flood's coming, you can get out of there. But if it gets it wrong and it doesn't predict a flood and you trust that AI, you'll stay where you are. And unfortunately, people will die as a result. AI is only as good as the data you feed it. In the words of Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, of course it was going to get nerdy. We're talking AI here. And here's another a semi-famous example of when AI went rogue. There were some representatives and Amazon was doing some face surveillances and it was like bing, bing, bing. And it found some people who potentially committed some crimes. The only issue was the people who they said committed the crimes were like senators and congressmen. So it didn't match them properly. But even worse, they were all black. It said that all the black people in the government potentially committed crimes. And it's just because the data that the algorithm was fed was disproportionate in skin colors and tones. There's examples of people being told they're pregnant when they're not, or examples of people going to jail, or like AI making mistakes. Ultimately, this isn't HAL 9000's fault. This is our fault for not putting the right data in. But imagine this, like the reputation now for Amazon must take a massive plummet after this. So you've always got to ask yourself, if it goes wrong, one, are you going to kill people? Two, is your reputation going to be ruined beyond repair? You've got an idea in your head, hopefully, about AI and how you could implement it. Worst case scenario, it goes wrong. What is the worst thing that could happen? Will you just lose some money? Will you have a bad reputation? Would your beneficiaries be worse off? You actually end up making people's lives worse, or would people die? And I know I've used funny little gifs, but it can actually be quite a serious thing. I'm not going to get into ethics today, but if a self-driving car kills someone, who's at fault? Is it you, the fake driver? Is it the car? Bad car. Is it the manufacturer? Is it the person who sold it to you? Is it the person who did the coding? It gets a bit muddy. Thankfully, a lot of you are just going to lose some money, and I would say that's a fine risk. If you said death, maybe, more research is needed. We're going fast, but I just want to make sure we really get all of this in there. So I hope you're all keeping up. How can we stop you losing money? How can we stop death? How can we stop all of these things which potentially could go wrong? It's easy. Data, data, data. The more data we have, the more accurate and realistic that our predictions and outcomes will be. So on this list, all you need to do is look at the different options. So we've got scrape it, use a paid data service, an open source data repository, partner with industries who are rich in data, or open source. And all you got to do is rank them to the ones that you think you'd be most likely to use. The key to getting data is it's got to be reliable, and it's got to be up to date, and it's got to be continuous. So interestingly, a lot of you have said partner with industries who are rich in data. I think that's a really sensible option, because if you look at like the big five, like with Google, your Facebook, your Amazon, your Microsoft, and whatever the other one is, they have a monopoly. You will never be able to keep up with that monopoly unless you go for a much niche angle. So with the plant one, yes, Google might have more images of plants than you'll ever have, but does it have all the images of the plants that have the data attached to it about how healthy the plant is? So you can still break the data market, but you've really got to come in at a bit of a niche angle, otherwise partnering up. Another thing, if you go get your data elsewhere, the quality can vary, and it's very hard as well. I can tell you from personal experience, scraping, you don't always get great results. So I'm glad that that's at the bottom. Here's a fun one. What is the expiration date of the below data types? So how long is this data actually valid? Is it valid in a matter of microseconds, or is it evergreen? Always great. So we've got real-time insights, the things that are happening right now, operational insights, performance insights, strategic insights. I know data's starting to sound like a tin of baked beans at the back of your cupboard now, but it really does have an expiration date. Oh, do you know what? I must say, consider me impressed. You're completely right. Real-time data literally goes out of date this like the moment you get it. This is why having a computer make predictions and act on it makes way more sense. Operational is the second, then performance insights, and strategic insight has the longest life expectancy. But if you don't have continuous data that is renewing, what you're making isn't going to work. The number one thing about should I start AI is normally, do you have access to continuous data? Imagine making like a water fountain and only have like one cup of water. You need a continuous source, otherwise it's going to dry up. A pandemic happens unexpectedly. Darn it. How waterproof is your data? So what do I actually mean by waterproof? I mean, like, is your data, like, could an apocalypse happen? Could like zombies rise from the ground and would your data still be valid or would it completely ruin it? For example, maybe you've got data on how consumers use the high street. Well, the pandemic completely screwed that data up because that data is no longer valid. And if you're a small company, this could make or break you. And, as an investor, I don't know if I would want to invest in a company that if, say, the economy suddenly shift or the environment changed overnight or an area you're in were prone to flooding, that I would want to put, all my eggs in that basket. So we've got House of Cards. So that means the slightest little thing and doom. We've got resistance to the status quo. So no matter what happens, your data is going to still be pretty accurate, or evergreen, even in an apocalypse. I'm not sure what data would be evergreen, but I'm sure there is some. So always think the best one you want is the middle one. That's going to be the best one. Playing on the first one is risky business. I see some of you just jumped ships and went to the middle one. Oh, this is one of my favorite questions of the day. Who doesn't love animals? What animal is this? Joe Exotic would be proud. I'm loving the Tiger King. I can't wait for a sequel. But Trump never pardoned him. Probably for the best. He's a terrible human being. Okay, so what animal is this? Seems easy, right? Of course you all know. A lot of you have like degrees and stuff. You should know your animals. Most, oh, 50-50. A lot of you think it's a lion, a lot of you think it's a tiger. You're wrong. It's not any of them. It's a liger, obviously. And the thing is why this is relevant is data, the AI can only work with the data you give it. So if you're going through cucumbers and you're like, okay, we've got a prickly cucumber and we've got a soft cucumber, and then a mango comes in the line, the computer wasn't expecting a mango, it's not going to know what to do with it. And the same here. If you've got lots of pictures of lions and tigers and they're just categorizing it and there's two options, one or zero, if you've got a liger, it's not going to know what to do with it. And this is when it comes to labeling. Labeling is really, really important and also incredibly boring. So you'd have to go through every photo: lion, lion, liger, liger, chimpanzee, liger, dull. So really can't get to you enough. All well and good you having data, but is it labeled correctly? I would highly recommend you hiring someone who is a trained specialist in labeling your data because your data is going to be useless. Some things like, oh, this is a rock or this is a stone. It depends on who you're asking on terms of what they call it. You want to have a consistent naming strategy for it to be effective. Next one is select the number 2 in binary. And I've been researching this. It's none of them. I think it's just 0, 1 is 2 in binary. But why is this important? I'm not expecting any of you to be, talking beep, boop, boop, like a robot. But if your computer or your AI has got all this data, it's churning the data out, and then you get back a report that makes no sense, it's useless to you. Your AI needs to be able to speak human, or you need to be able to speak AI. And if there's a mismatch, it's useless. If you want to understand it, that's going to cost you more money. So that's something you've got to consider as well. The cost goes up dramatically if you want it to convert. There's a great example of robots that started talking to each other and they got so smart in such a small amount of time, they created their own language and they had to like pull the plug. I'm not sure that'll happen to you, but either way, you're going to want to find a common language that you can both be on the same page about. Now to the money. It always comes down to money, the bottom line. How much do you think building an AI and updating it costs? So on here, I just want you to put in some numbers. We'll use dollars because world currency. So how much is this going to cost you? You want to save the environment, you want to make healthcare more accessible, you want to reduce homelessness. Brilliant. But how much is it going to cost you? 50,000? Okay, 100,000, 500,000, brilliant. Either way, it's no small change. The answer to this isn't as simple as you'd think. I'd love to be able to give you a number. Who doesn't love a good estimate? Like, it's going to cost you. I'm not a cowboy builder. But if I was to take a ballpark figure, I think about minimum $6,000, and it could go up to like 300,000 or more. And this is when it comes down to, okay, suddenly I'm not so interested in AI, but you really do not have to start from scratch. Building your AI is expensive, and quite frankly, it's a bit pointless, particularly if you don't have the user base or the data. There's companies that have done amazing work already. Google, Microsoft, they have free open source stuff to use. Even systems like Typeform or Calendly, like things that already exist, you can buy into the ecosystem, and that still counts as embedding AI into your company. Most social enterprises are startups, they are still growing. No one is expecting you to develop something from scratch. Sometimes just by using what already exists is makes more sense from a money perspective as well as from a user perspective, just because it's easy to use, it's integrated, there's additional support. And finding a talent, I don't know if any of you have any AI people in your team, but they're expensive and they're hard to come by. Places like Google and Microsoft are poaching them before they've even left university. So are you able to train up your staff to keep up with the trends, or are you able to find this talent anywhere else? Definitely something to consider. Okay, we're almost there. We're at the end. Now, the question I asked you at the very beginning, I'm going to ask you now. And I just want to I'm curious to see, has your opinions changed at all? Can you still state your problem clearly, or has that changed? Can you solve your problem with AI, or did you suddenly think, you know what, I think I can do it on my own, actually? A lot of people can still state their problem, which I guessed. Can you solve your challenge without AI? A lot of you are still keen on it. Well, it's good to know. I didn't put you off too much. Do you accept that your solution will never be perfect? Yes, that's gone up dramatically. I think that's really good. It will definitely set expectations. There's this concept called the AI winter. It's not related to like Game of Thrones, but they say winter's coming. And it essentially means we're going to get bored of it and then we're going to move on. And the reason we might get bored of it is because we have these massive high expectations and they just do not meet our reality. Complicated AI could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years off, we do not know. And a great example is 3D glasses. We were loving 3D, weren't we, in Avatar? Now I actively avoid the 3D cinema, mainly because it scratches glasses, but that's my problem, not yours. But 3D isn't that great. Do you possess enough data to get started? That is probably one of the real crucial ones. The last one for this again, is your data relevant? Do you have continuous access to new data? Can you label your data correctly? Is your data accurate enough? And do you have enough resources to keep the AI going? Okay, Dan has said, it's such an interesting topic and a great presentation. Stop it, Dan. I love that you highlight how important AI for business, particularly before an MVP. I would love to connect with social entrepreneurs. Yes, so cool. Thanks for that, Dan. We'll definitely add you. And we do have our own LinkedIn group as well for Forbes Ignite. So definitely get involved in that. We've got some really interesting discussions happening. It'd be really interested to know, are you more optimistic about AI or are you a little bit more pessimistic, negative? So that would be interesting. Here's the key takeaways. If you remember anything today, remember I'm Nat. But more importantly, if you remember anything today, start with data. If you do not have data, you do not have AI. If you can recognize patterns yourself, can you spot the difference? If you can do Where's Wally or Where's Waldo, you don't need machine learning. It needs to be something that you cannot do or someone else. Placing an excessively high bar may result in disappointment. I would love AI to be at like a futuristic stage, but the truth is it's never going to be at the futuristic stage because our expectation of what AI is continuously shifting. AI is not a golden ticket. This isn't Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. AI is not going to open you up to a whole new world if you do not have the data. Check the data again and again and again. Wrong data can give really, really bad results. Imagine in the medical field, if you a little bit of wrong data, someone could die as a result. So it's so important to check for those typos. The more data you have, the more reliable it will be. Learn from examples. AI needs good examples. So remember, we need some ligers in your data. Make sure that AI is weatherproof. If the well, the climate, if your dog dies, if you get a divorce, is your data still going to be good? I hope none of those things happen. If in doubt, hire experts. You are the mind. As a social entrepreneur, you're the boss, but you do not have to be a jack of all trades. Your job is to have a basic understanding of the possible places where you could use AI. You do not have to be the one who actually uses, like, creates it and implements it. Test it again and again, and if it already exists, use that. Do not reinvent the wheel. Garbage in, garbage out. That's a very succinct way of putting it. You get what you put in. Oh, one last pitch. Do check out this book, coming to a good bookstore near you. I've noticed this on Amazon and a few other bookstores at the moment, so do check it out. This book goes into way more detail. I touched upon like one tiny chapter, and this book goes into A to B on how to implement AI, what to implement, is it good, is it bad, how to get buy-in, when is it appropriate, when should you create your own AI, uh, when should you buy into other ecosystems, all of that stuff. So question times. Feel free to grill me. I love a challenge. I'm also going to need to rest my voice for like a year after this. That's a lot of talking in an hour.
Mm.
Okay. Albin has said, does it make sense to integrate with AI solutions on my products rather than build it myself? Absolutely. I use things like Zapier that kind of joins different softwares up so they talk together. I was inspired by this session. Can AI be integrated in effective research? No, absolutely. Remember, like sometimes you need data to make good AI, but there could be AI that helps you sort through data. A really great example is I'm busy figuring out my family tree at the moment, and I'm using ancestry.com. This isn't a paid ad, and they have been able to go through all my family records, death certificates, and I found out my family goes back to the 1700s so far, and it's still figuring it out. That's a level of data searching that I would never be able to do. Guess what? We're all called like Nathaniel William Hawley III, Mountbatten, Duke. It goes back far. But essentially, we're farmers, and also I come from a line of pub owners. Nice to know. Okay, we got any other examples of social enterprises applying AI to issues? Absolutely. What else have we got? We've got humpback whales. They're going extinct. Someone's trying to solve that problem. So they've gone down the ocean and they've recorded whale sounds. The AI is able to sort through the noise of the ocean to figure out where the whales are and map them over time. They're able to make money off of that because they're able to regulate with fishers, like fishermen, where to fish and where's a safe area to do it. Or example with the one that we're able to take pictures of the plants and if they were dying. Yes, that was a great issue that helped a lot of people in Tanzania. But now you can go on your phone, take a picture of your daffodils, and your phone can tell you you've got a daffodil. But there's going to be plants that you have no idea what they're called, and your phone can do that. So with like most things, like with NASA, sometimes we create things because we can or to help a lot of people, but then it can easily be translated and embedded into day-to-day activities. So you can sometimes the thing you do might inherently help the world and make you money. Other times it might solve a problem and then you can kind of like repackage it and that will allow you to stay sustainable as well. So that there's multiple ways to skin a cat, as they say. But I do not recommend that. The possibilities with AI in research are huge. Thank you, Adriana. Is that? We work with dry labs that use AI algorithms to go through data and come up with new active ingredients. Oh, very nice. We then help them test them out in real life cell modules in our laboratories. That's really interesting. The possibility of AI. Okay, I think we're good. Can AI be used to help research that has not yet been done? I can't see why not. I think as long as you make it very clear what you want to do, The possibilities of AI are endless. You've just always got to ask yourself, could I do this without AI? But for this instance, I guess you could. I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but I don't see any reason why not. Are there any AI developers slash practitioners that you know of focusing on social businesses? Loads. Loads. The best thing I would recommend is getting involved with Forbes Ignite community. You can find us on, Facebook, Twitter, go on our website, forbesignite.com, or also our LinkedIn group. We don't just have AI developers, but we have neuroscientists, we have like prodigies, we have individual changing the world. Essentially, if you're looking for a community of people who like doing stuff because it's cool, but also, do not want to be on the breadlines, it's going to be the great community for you. I've met such amazing people where you can really create something great and you don't have to be the expert. If you've got a skill and they've got a skill, you can do some classic bartering and swap them around. So that would probably be the best thing I would say to start off with. Whew, all right, we're good. Last but not least, next one is July the 23rd, and this is AI for social impact. So, how can you use AI to make the biggest difference in the world? And also, how can you use AI to show that you're making a difference? It's all well and good saving the planet, but if you can't show you're saving the planet, how are you going to get grants? How are you going to get funding in the future? Sometimes documenting what you're doing is just as important as actually doing the work. And most of us, we're not on Instagram, maybe we're not here just showing it off because we're cool, but you still have to find a way of showing information. This session will also go into a lot more examples of how AI is being implemented into real world. So we'll be going through the sustainable development goals and seeing how different uses has helped them and how they've been able to display their results on a mass scale. So do check that out. You can click that little link on your phone, I believe, or I will send it to you. Let's connect. My name's Nat at forbesignite.com, or you can message Will or Nicole, the same address. There's our website. Here's our LinkedIn, and I think you can find our group via that. Before I go, Will, Nicole, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just thank you guys for joining. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
All right, wow, that was a lot to pack into an hour, but I really hope you enjoyed it. It's been absolutely amazing having you all here, and thank you so much for your participation. Catch you soon.